Hey there, this is DHG doing my review for Ghostwire Tokyo. Took a few days to gather my thoughts around this game. I was originally going to give it a great rating, but to be completely honest, there were some things that I think they could have improved on, and it would have moved the gameplay through a lot better had they done so. So I gotta settle with giving it a good score. I changed up my review structure a little bit since wokeness is creeping in everywhere into video games and has been for some time. I'm going to be spurting my views off on that first thing. It's going to come before graphics now. And so, wokeism in Ghostwire. Is there any? Does it really make any difference in the game? No, I haven't seen any. This was the first big game I've seen in, I don't know, maybe a couple years that really didn't have any woke bullshit, neo-Marxist crap in it anywhere. And that goes from the whole climate religion with Gaia and the whole transgender for-profit movement, all of it. And what I'd like to say about that is Ghostwire Tokyo focuses on... It's a story about a dude who has a destroyed family, and he's only got one sibling left, and she is getting dragged into this whole situation. It's about the lengths at which him and his, let's just say, the spirit that hijacks his body is kind of like another person living within him who's also been ousted from his own body. They're both trying to protect their families. It's two strong men trying to protect their families and the ones they love after. That's not a very common theme nowadays. They usually try to throw that role on women or people of color or anyone else they could find except for the man. Why? Because wokeness. Because they're viewed as the oppressors. On the oppression-tyranny scale, it comes to men being at the top, and especially white Christian heterosexual men. That's why they're ostracized so much, and that's why transgender people and minorities are always boasted in games, trying to be virtuous. Although it's always token characters that you see in this situation, such as Far Cry 6 is filled with them. But in Ghostwire Tokyo, you have none of that. This game also plays on the importance of decisions, ones that you make in your life. And coming from the entire woke idea of amorality, I forget the specific word for this, but it's a very nihilistic worldview where nothing really matters anyway. I mean, a lot of wokeism and woke politics is based upon atheism and the belief that there either is no God or that people can become God via Gnosticism, things like that. This game deals with karma a lot, that you have to make good decisions in the different intersections in your life so that they don't come back to haunt you later. That's a very big portion of this game's gameplay and story, and they do a little bit in the beginning, but it really comes to its own in the end and somewhere near the middle, because you see people going two different ways with this. You have Akito and I don't remember his real name. He goes by KK in this. It's a spirit that possesses his body, who's on screen right now. They go the good way. They do whatever it takes to protect their family and those around them. The other guy, he wears the Hanya mask. I can't remember his name. He goes the opposite direction. He goes the full dark end. So they're trying to protect the ones they love in their own way, but the one just goes manic destructive and brings everyone down with them. So, there's no real woke politics in this game. If you're concerned about that, you will be relieved to know that there aren't any. On to graphics. As you can see, this game's got superb graphics. It's got ray tracing, it's got some very good upscaling. If you have NVIDIA, then you get to take advantage of DLSS. I don't. I have AMD. You can use FSR if you want, but they also have the Unreal Engine's, I think it's called TSR. That's a very good upscaler. That's the one I used for this game. And in 4K max settings, maxed out ray tracing, the game looked gorgeous and it ran well too. after a BIOS update, which I wasn't aware of. I think Windows, I don't know what the whole story with the BIOS update was, but after I updated the BIOS, this game started playing even better, and I was able to stay around 60 frames per second most of the time. Going around the streets of Tokyo, it's a rainy day. It seems like time never passes, oddly enough. I mean, it's nighttime the whole time. The streets are always wet. Sometimes it rains. Sometimes it's, I would say, normal, just rainy, foggy day. But it looks great no matter where you go. There's some forested areas that look superb. And I don't know if this is a thing just with AMD cards, or if this is across the board. But some of the side missions have you dealing with cleansing corruption from trees, and you'll see these cherry blossoms bloom. Major frame rate drops there. I can't knock the game for that, though. Like I said, I don't know if it's just an AMD thing, or if that happens on PlayStation as well. Controls. Yeah, this game got knocked down a little bit for controls. If you're using mouse and keyboard, it's probably fine. But if you're using a gamepad like I am, and I've looked at some of the PlayStation forums and all that, people were having trouble with this on PlayStation as well. The game's really hard to get set up and get comfortable with the controls. I don't know what they did with it, and I'm really, really getting sick of these developers making up new ways to explain something that already exists, that already has a name, like dead zones. If you're going to include a dead zone, just call it a dead zone. Don't call it some sort of an aim assist factor, or I forget how many different ways they try to describe this. I've seen all sorts of different ridiculous, especially Deathloop. Just call it a dead zone, just call it what it is, then call it acceleration, all these other things they use to make the gamepad controls smoother. Just call it what it is. Stop making up your own names for it. But that took a while to get going. Once you get the controls up and running, though, you'll find that slower is better. This isn't Call of Duty. You don't need to do a 360-degree turn or a 180-degree turn on a dot. It's just not necessary here. Just go slower and you'll have fun with it. Gameplay. The open world is kind of large. I mean, it's not as large as some other games out there, but I don't really see that as a bad thing. Because a lot of games that use open worlds, they just go for size, and then you find it's just an open world with nothing in it. They pack this one fairly dense. Whether you're going around collecting spirits or doing side quests, there's always something to do nearby. With the combat itself, the combat was really neat. You use different kind of abilities. Let me see if I could get into it in another video here. Yeah, this is the first ability you get. This is wind. And you get fire here. See over here. You get fire, wind, water. Fire is kind of like a area of effect. It's like throwing a fireball. Wind is used for long-range attacks. It's not very powerful. You can do the little minigun type thing right there. It's pretty neat. Then you got the wind. Wind is kind of like close range. It's like a shotgun. It's pretty neat. And then you grab the chorus from the opponents, which is a really neat way to alter the gameplay instead of just doing another type of... You could describe this as some type of a first-person shooter, but it's really much more than that, because there's also a little bit more, let's say, melee combat mixed in with it. Or it feels like it because of the close-range effects of some of the abilities you get. They did a really good job trying some original ideas with the gameplay here. The sound. Sound is great. I really enjoyed the sound in this game. When you're just wandering around the city, you'll hear the ambient things, and the only thing that's really left around are the animals. So there's dogs and cats everywhere, and you can hear them. They're always adorable, especially the dogs. They're always leading you to things and somehow digging coins out of concrete. I'd like to know how that's done. They don't really use the sound all that much when it's not needed. Like, say, when you're just standing there doing nothing, the sound doesn't come up for no reason. It's very contextual. And that goes into my next point, in my next point of review. Music. It's really good when you use it. The game doesn't make a whole lot of use of music, though. It's doing what a lot of games nowadays are doing. They have some small type of ambient music in the background, but then when the action really starts going up, or if they're in critical story moments, then they'll get the, let's just say, the full orchestra coming in, especially at the end of the game once you get into the last parts of the main story. They did a really good job wrapping that up. I mean, really good. Story. This is where I had to knock some points off of it as well. So it was control that they could have improved to get the great score, and it's also the story. While the end of the story was great, and midway was great, the beginning starts off very slow. I did not like how they did the beginning of the story. It took a little too long to get picked up. You don't really have a lot of character control. You're just sitting there watching a really long cutscene. They could have done a lot more to make it more interactive with the character and give you more to do than just sit there and watch a movie. That being said, there were some games that have received great scores for doing that same thing, like Metal Gear Solid 4, except everything in Metal Gear Solid 4 was... That game had a long backstory to it. They could pull that off by explaining things that happened previously in the series. Given that this is a brand new IP, they don't have that luxury here. So the first half hour of the game is you just watching all this stuff and see it unfold, and ultimately it's not that interesting. They guide your way to where you need to go for about the first 45 minutes, and then you can actually start doing some stuff. They could have improved that process. Stability. I don't really remember having any crashes associated with this game. I think I had a bug or two earlier on, but I can't remember what it was. That being said, the game was very, very stable. Of course, like I said, the frame rate varies a little bit just because the game is so demanding. It's a very, very graphically demanding game. But in terms of stability, like I said, I didn't get any crashes. It's very hard to run, but it's stable. In my opinions, well, you already got my opinion as to how they could have improved the, let's just say, first 45 minutes of gameplay. And they need to brush up on the controls in the sequel, if there is going to be one. I imagine there will, because this game sold well. And that's it. Ghostwire Tokyo. I played it on PC. You could also play it on PlayStation 5. That's what it came out for first. It's a good game. Couple small adjustments. Could have got a great score. Maybe the sequel will do that. I will definitely be looking into it. And most important, no woke bullshit.